In a world that never stops talking, nobody noticed the boy who stayed silent. In his high school hallway in Ohio, noise ruled everything. Laughter bounced off lockers. Arguments exploded between teenagers desperate to be seen. Teachers raised their voices to compete with chaos. And in the middle of it all sat Ethan Walker, quiet, still, invisible. He wasn't bullied because bullies prefer reactions. He wasn't admired because admiration follows noise. He simply didn't exist in their eyes. Teachers called him average. Classmates called him boring. Some didn't call him anything at all. Ethan rarely raised his hand. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because he learned early that talking never earned him respect. At home, silence was survival. His father believed words were weakness. His mother worked double shifts and came home exhausted, speaking only when necessary. Dinner was quiet. Life was quiet. So Ethan grew up listening to tones, listening to patterns, listening to what people meant, not what they said. While others spoke to impress, Ethan observed to understand. But the world doesn't reward silence early. At 17, during a class presentation, Ethan froze. Not because he was unprepared, but because 30 pairs of eyes felt like judgment. Someone laughed. Another whispered, "He never talks anyway." That night, Ethan stared at his ceiling and asked a dangerous question. Is something wrong with me? America celebrates the loud, the confident, the outspoken. So where does that leave the silent ones? That night, Ethan made a promise not to become louder, but to become stronger. He didn't know it yet, but silence was about to become his greatest weapon. College didn't change much, except the stakes. At a state university, Ethan studied computer science. Group projects were nightmares.
The loud students took control. They talked endlessly, ideas flying everywhere, direction nowhere. Ethan stayed quiet. But while they debated, he built. He noticed flaws others missed. He saw inefficiencies hidden under confident speeches. He listened more than he spoke, and because of that, he saw more than they ever did. One night, while his group argued for 3 hours about a design approach, Ethan quietly coded an alternative. He didn't interrupt. He didn't argue. He waited. The next morning, he simply said, "I made something. You can look if you want." They laughed, until they saw it worked. Perfectly. That was the first crack in the illusion that loud equals smart. But success didn't come instantly. At internships, recruiters favored charisma. At meetings, managers listened to confident voices, not thoughtful ones. Ethan went home frustrated. Until he discovered a pattern. The loudest people talked first. The smartest people talked last. The most powerful people? They spoke only when necessary. So Ethan changed strategy. He stopped trying to be noticed. He focused on being undeniable. While others partied, he learned. While others argued, he practiced. While others talked about dreams, he quietly built systems that worked. Years later, at a failing startup in California, Ethan was hired as just another engineer. Meetings were chaos. Everyone spoke. No one listened. The company was bleeding money. One day, the CEO asked the room, "Does anyone actually know why users are leaving?" Silence. Then Ethan spoke, calm, precise, unstoppable. In 3 minutes, he explained the real problem. In 5 minutes, he proposed a solution. In 10 minutes, he showed data. The room went quiet. That day, Ethan was promoted. Not because he spoke more. But because when he spoke, it mattered. Silence wasn't weakness. Silence was preparation. Years later, Ethan sat at the head of the table. Same room. Different power. Executives waited for him to speak. And he still didn't rush. Because silence does something magical, it forces others to listen. Ethan had learned what most never do. Loud people seek attention. Silent people command it. He hired carefully. He spoke intentionally. He listened obsessively. Competitors underestimated him. They mistook calm for hesitation. By the time they realized the truth, it was too late. The company scaled. The systems dominated. The quiet man became a silent force. And here's the truth America rarely tells you. Some of the most successful people in history were quiet. Abraham Lincoln listened more than he spoke. Warren Buffett speaks slowly, and rarely. Elon Musk pauses before answers. Steve Jobs used silence to control rooms. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is focus. Silence is discipline. Silence is power under control. If you're quiet in a loud world, you're not weak. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're loading. Let others talk. Let others boast. Let others seek validation. You build in silence. And one day, your results will speak so loudly that no one will ever ignore you again. Ethan didn't suddenly become confident. That's the lie most motivational stories tell. Confidence didn't arrive like lightning. It arrived like pressure. Quiet pressure. The kind that builds underground before earthquakes split cities in half. During his sophomore year, Ethan failed his first major interview. Not because he lacked skill. Not because he lacked preparation. But because the interviewer said something that stayed with him for years. You're clearly smart, but you don't sell yourself. That sentence echoed louder than any insult. Sell yourself. America loved that phrase. Sell your personality. Sell your energy. Sell your confidence. Sell your voice. Ethan walked out of the building, sat on a bench, and watched people pass by. Everyone looked busy. Everyone looked important. Everyone looked loud. And for the first time, he felt anger. Not explosive anger. Focused anger. The dangerous kind. He realized something painful. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards proof. So Ethan stopped waiting to be chosen. He decided to become unavoidable. While others filled silence with words, Ethan filled it with work. He studied people. Not in a creepy way. In a strategic way. He noticed patterns. Loud people spoke early, often wrong. Average people spoke often, rarely useful. Powerful people spoke last, and ended conversations. He watched how silence changed rooms. When someone spoke non-stop, people tuned out. When someone paused, people leaned in. Silence created gravity. So Ethan trained himself to be comfortable inside it. No phone scrolling. No nervous talking. No explaining himself unnecessarily. Just observation. Just preparation. Just quiet improvement. Junior year brought a nightmare assignment. A semester-long group project worth 40% of the grade. Ethan was paired with Jason, loud, confident, reckless. Melissa, talkative, unorganized. Brian, charming, lazy. On day one, Jason declared himself leader. "I've got vision," he said. Ethan said nothing. For weeks, meetings dragged on. Ideas flew everywhere. Deadlines slipped. Responsibility vanished. Jason talked. Melissa reacted. Brian joked. Ethan listened. He noticed what wasn't said. No structure. No version control. No testing plan. No backup. So quietly, at night, Ethan built one. He didn't tell them. He didn't argue. He just worked. When the project collapsed 2 weeks before the deadline, panic hit. Jason blamed everyone. Melissa cried. Brian disappeared. Ethan opened his laptop. "I have something," he said calmly. They looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. He showed them the system. Clean. Functional. Scalable. Silence filled the room. For the first time, they didn't interrupt him. They listened. That moment taught Ethan a permanent lesson. Silence gains power when backed by competence. But the world didn't suddenly bow. After graduation, rejection emails stacked up. Great candidate, but looking for a better culture fit. Position filled. Each one tested him. He wondered if silence would cost him everything. One night, scrolling LinkedIn, he saw classmates celebrating offers. They were louder than him. More confident. More visible. And here he was, unseen. But then something clicked. They talked about success. He was building it. Ethan accepted a low-paid internship at a struggling startup in Sacramento. The office smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. People argued constantly. Meetings were battles. Everyone wanted credit. Nobody wanted responsibility. Ethan took notes. He didn't interrupt. Didn't compete. He fixed bugs quietly. Improved systems silently. One day, the app crashed during a demo. Panic. Voices collided. Blame flew. Ethan stepped forward. "I can fix it," he said. No drama. No panic. 10 minutes later, the system was live. The room went quiet. That was the second lesson. Silence earns respect when it saves people. Weeks later, managers began asking Ethan questions. Not because he demanded attention. But because his absence of noise made his presence meaningful. When Ethan spoke, it was clear. Short. Accurate. No filler. No ego. People trusted him. And trust is louder than confidence. Then came the crisis. The startup lost its biggest client. Layoffs were coming. Tension filled the office. Executives argued for hours. Nothing worked. Finally, the CEO asked, "Does anyone here actually understand what's happening?" Silence. Ethan felt his heartbeat. This wasn't fear. This was alignment. He stood up. And spoke. Not loudly. Not nervously. Precisely. He explained why users were leaving. Where the system failed. What needed to change. No extra words. No emotion. Just truth. The room didn't interrupt him. Because silence had trained them to listen. That moment changed everything. Later that night, Ethan sat alone in the office. Lights off. City humming outside. He realized something few people ever do. Silence is not absence. Silence is selection. You choose when to speak. You choose what matters. You choose to let results do the talking. The loud chase attention. The silent build gravity. And gravity always wins. Ethan didn't become loud after that night. He became dangerously calm. And the higher he rose, the quieter he became. Because now he understood. Silence isn't what you have when you lack power. Silence is what you choose when you finally have it. The promotion didn't change Ethan's schedule. It changed how people behaved around him. Before, meetings happened around him. Now, meetings slowed because of him. People waited. Not out of fear. Out of anticipation. Ethan noticed it the first time it happened. A conference room. 12 people. Coffee cooling in paper cups. The product manager finished talking and instinctively looked at Ethan. Everyone else followed. No one said, "What do you think?" They didn't need to. Silence filled the room, but this time, it wasn't awkward. It was expectant. Ethan didn't rush. He leaned back. Looked at the data. Let the room sit inside the pause. That pause did something powerful. It stripped away ego. It killed filler thoughts. It forced everyone to confront reality. Then he spoke. 3 sentences. The decision was made. The meeting ended early. As people stood up, Ethan realized something fundamental had shifted. He wasn't competing for attention anymore. Attention had learned to wait for him. Loud power needs reinforcement. It repeats itself. Explains itself. Defends itself. Quiet power doesn't argue. It stands. Ethan watched senior executives closely now. The loud ones filled every gap with words. The powerful ones created gaps, and let others fill them. Silence exposed truth. People revealed priorities when uncomfortable. They leaked insecurity when rushed. They showed weakness when pressured to speak. Ethan never rushed them. He let silence do the work. Success teaches confidence. Confidence tempts complacency. One quarter, Ethan underestimated a competitor. He didn't speak up soon enough. Not because he didn't know, but because he believed results would reveal the truth eventually. They didn't. The company lost market share. The board was furious. For the first time in years, silence turned against him. Not because silence was wrong, but because timing matters. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He stared at his reflection and asked himself a brutal question. Am I silent because I'm strategic? Or because I'm avoiding discomfort? Silence, he realized, must be chosen, not hidden behind. The next morning, he walked into the boardroom early. Sat down. Waited. When the room filled, he didn't let silence linger too long. He spoke first. Owned the mistake. Explained the oversight. Presented a recovery plan. No excuses. No emotional defense. Just responsibility. The room softened. That was the moment Ethan learned the final rule. Silence is powerful, but only when paired with courage. Recovery didn't happen overnight. But it happened cleanly. Systems improved. Focus sharpened. Noise disappeared. Ethan promoted fewer people, but promoted better ones. He didn't reward loudness. He rewarded clarity. Meetings became shorter. Execution became faster. Competitors mocked the company publicly. Ethan never responded. 3 quarters later, the numbers spoke. Market dominance returned. Silence didn't clap back. It outperformed. A journalist requested an interview. People say you're hard to read, she said. Ethan smiled, not outwardly, but internally. The camera rolled. She asked rapid questions. He answered slowly. Thoughtfully. Sometimes, not at all. He let questions breathe. Viewers leaned in. The comments section exploded. He doesn't waste words. This guy is terrifyingly calm. You can feel the intelligence. Silence translated through the screen. One evening, a junior developer waited outside Ethan's office. Nervous. Quiet. Ethan noticed immediately. He invited him in. The kid spoke fast, too fast. Over-explaining. Over-justifying. Ethan let him finish. Then waited. The silence stretched. The kid shifted uncomfortably. Finally, Ethan said. You don't need to prove yourself with words. The kid blinked. Build something undeniable. Then speak once. That sentence would change the kid's life. Because it had changed Ethan's. Years passed. Titles stacked up. Money followed. But what Ethan valued most wasn't success. It was control. Control over emotion. Control over reaction. Control over expression. Silence had given him that. He no longer reacted. He responded. He no longer chased relevance. He attracted it. He no longer feared being overlooked. Because he understood the truth most people never will. Noise is cheap. Silence is expensive. Anyone can talk. Few can wait. Few can listen. Few can hold back power instead of leaking it through words. On the anniversary of his first promotion, Ethan returned to his old university. He stood on the same campus where he once felt invisible. This time, students gathered. They expected a speech. Ethan stepped up. Paused. Let silence wash over the crowd. Then he said, "Don't confuse silence with weakness. Some people are quiet because they're afraid. Others are quiet because they're dangerous." The crowd went still. He smiled. And walked away. If you're silent in a loud world, you're not behind. You're building pressure. Let them talk. Let them boast. Let them underestimate. Silence isn't empty. It's loaded. And when it finally speaks, it changes everything. If this story felt like it was written for you, if you've ever been the quiet one in a loud world, then don't stay invisible anymore. Subscribe. Not because we're loud, but because we're building something powerful, in silence. And if this message hit you, like the video.